Everybody for joining today. This is our fourth webinar for Organic Lawns by Lunseth. Um, I'm going to share my screen here. Anytime you have any questions, you can either type them in the chat, or um, you can unmute yourself and certainly stop me. I'm happy to do that as well.
No, I can.
Oh, now you can. Great. Okay. Great. Well, I'm Shay Lunseth, owner of Organic Lawns by Lunseth. I'm going to go over some topics. Some of these are repeat from previous sessions. Some of these are new, pertaining to what is going on in our lawns right now. And then, of course, any questions you have about anything, be happy to answer at any time. Okay, there it's going. So today we're going to go over weed control, the weather and what's happening right now, as well as watering tips, and then at the end we'll talk a little bit about bee lawns and supporting our pollinators. Okay. So weed control, for people on our regular standard program for the full season. So we've had our early spring corn gluten application that is for our preventing some weeds that are going to germinate as summer annuals. We will do corn gluten again here we'll start now and we'll do that through August, and that's going to combat some of our winter annual weeds. Corn gluten does take 3+ years to do its best in preventing weeds. So something that you get more weed control the more you do it over the years. Liquid iron is the applications that we've been doing now. We're doing them all through the summer. We can do those up until the late fall. 4 applications is the maximum we do in a season, and those would be for weeds such as creeping Charlie, clover, plantains, and thistle. Those in particular need 3 to 4 applications to be able to suppress those weeds. A late fall application is a really good way if you want to add one more iron for some of these stubborn weeds. Doing so in the fall when the weeds are going dormant, they're weaker as they prepare for that dormancy. So hitting them when they're weak can be a very good time of year to be successful in the application of iron. Some of the weeds will recover through the iron. So you can see in this photo, it'll turn kind of blacky, purple, brown. Some will recover right through that, and others will be suppressed. One of the other ways that we control weeds is with the allelopathic grass species. So those are grasses that we sow in the fall as part of our overseeding efforts. And then the other things that can be greatly helpful in weed control is our cultural methods. So keeping the grass cut high and watering appropriately are 2 really good ways to aid in the process. So these are just some examples. The 2 pictures on the left of keeping your grass high, you can see that the taller the grass is, the taller the root systems are. And so the root system is going to mimic the length of the grass. And so the longer you keep the grass, the more drought resistant the grass is going to be, because the root system can reach down along and access moisture that way. It also is a good way to protect the crown of the grass plant for in periods of our summer that we are in high stress, high heat. That all protects the crown, which is the life of the grass, and what keeps it alive from year to year. You can see on that one picture to the right, the lawn on the right is one of our organic lawns, and you can see the neighbor was cutting it at least 3 inches shorter than them, making that just an example of what a difference in height that can be. And then the shorter you cut the grass, the more susceptible it is to drought, to disease, to weeds, and to drought or heat stress. Common weeds right now. I just wanted to speak. I'll go over some specific weeds that we're seeing a lot of right now. In these pictures at the top, just wanted to point out that when we're doing our iron applications, there's certain things we cannot apply on. We don't apply on landscaping beds, rock beds. We don't apply near patios, driveways, houses, fences, or really wanted plants. So if you have a landscaping or some flowering plants, shrubs, bushes, things like that. We really don't spray close to anything that's not in a turf. So just keep in mind that controlling weeds in rock beds, in landscaping beds, will help control them within the lawn. So this picture on the left is a rock bed that's kind of filled with weeds. Those are ones that is not part of what we're managing. So Creeping Charlie, very common weed, probably the most stubborn in Minnesota, and it is loves shade, likes moist conditions. So this spring was very advantageous for Creeping Charlie to thrive. Repeat applications of iron are necessary. One application will not eradicate this weed as it will just put down a new node. It grows beyond the stress. The applications that we're doing in the actively growing part of the year is slowing the spread and stressing that the Creeping Charlie out. It won't be the applications until the later summer into the fall, those third and fourth applications that are going to really start to suppress it. Chickweed, this has been a weed that has been very common this spring and early summer. It loves moisture. So where it might have just been in little parts of some maybe shaded areas of our lawns, this with all the rain that we had, it really flourished. It's a winter annual, so it actually will die midsummer in the heat. And it will set seed in the fall, and those seeds will sprout in the spring. It does have a couple generations in a year, so it kind of works like a short-lived perennial. And we might see several blooms of it. This year, I've just noticed it's been very crazy and pretty excessive in a lot of places, and that is really due to the excess moisture that we have. The iron is rated for this weed, so something multiple irons, we can get the multiple blooms of this weed. Also, improving turf density is another way to combat this. So part of our approach with organic weed control is thick, healthy grass is a really good way to keep the weeds out. Plantain is another one that the iron will work against. It does need 3 to 4 applications. Plantain is one that likes moisture. It likes high pH soils, which Minnesota, we just naturally have high pH soils due to the calcareous nature of the soil, the parent material, the limestone. So something that we see a lot in Minnesota. It loves compaction. So relieving compaction, having those aerations annually is something that will definitely help with plantains. And then going into that, we do have a video library in our website. So I'm just going to play a video about C20 as one of the tools that we have for, it's not necessarily for weed control, but it will help with compaction issues, which this helps not provide the advantageous environment for some weeds to thrive.
C20 is a concentrated carbon food source for soil microbes made from natural harvested grain products. This provides a natural source of carbon energy for microbes from a consistent source of 20-to-1 carbon to nitrogen ratio. 50% of this food is available to microbes right away, while the other 50% is available in the following weeks and months. Decaying organic matter and carbon are needed to maintain indigenous microbe populations, which then promotes respiration in the soil and opens up small oxygen pockets. This helps decompact soil and creates pore space for better root growth. Applying C20 during the seeding or sodding process can improve rooting and development. C20 can be used for lawn rejuvenation as it repairs construction damage in high traffic areas. C20 can replace poor aeration in sloped lawns around tree roots, or other difficult to aerate areas. The benefits include reduced soil compaction, increased root penetration, improved processing of water and oxygen within the soil, and overall healthier plants. Naturally, we can help.
Okay, so from there, so just a plug again for our website does have a lot of videos. So anytime you have an issue and you want to learn a little bit about it, we have a library there. Um, so another weed that we're seeing a lot of this season is black medic. It does like drought conditions, so something I would anticipate as we're moving more from the wetness that we are experiencing into this dry, hot weather. It also prefers nutrient deficient soils, so something they can improve over time with, especially if you hadn't been fertilizing before and then started with us, that once the soil has nutrients, this will be less prevalent. Yellowwood sorrel, another one. This is one we often see. You'd see it in your potted plants, is very common. It likes shaded, moist conditions. It's a perennial, so something that our iron is rated for, and that multiple applications can help get these blooms. They live pretty happily within the lawn, but especially in those shaded areas. White clover, this is one that again likes the cool, moist conditions. So I've actually been seeing it flowering just in the last week. Lawns that might not have any program, have any nitrogen added, it might not have any watering. They often will have white clover will come and live there because it can do really well in those conditions. It is a legume, so it fixes nitrogen from the atmosphere. So it would be an indication of a lawn that needs some more nitrogen. And yeah, one that 3 to 4 iron applications can help against. 1 or 2 applications will not kill the white clover. And this is, I should also note that our crew workers, they don't necessarily consider this a weed. There are many people that sow this. This is part of bee lawn installations. So never something that we would consider a problem, but if it's unwanted in your lawn, something to let the office know so we can help get some more iron applications in the program for you. I just wanted to show a few differences. It's sometimes very difficult to tell the difference between black medic, white clover, and the yellowwood sorrel. Yellowwood sorrel is the one that I tried to point it out here, that the leaves are heart-shaped. And so if you see a little heart, then you know it's that particular weed. White clover, they generally have this little halo effect, this little lighter color here. That would be the difference, especially when you can't see the white flower. That's one way to tell. And then black medic will is often mistake for these 2 weeds. This will always have a little stem on the top leaf, so it's 3-leaved, and the top one is on its own little stem here. So that's just something to practice your identifying in the lawn. Weather, you can tell that we've moved from, well, I should say that in Minnesota, we're kind of switching weather all the time. I believe tomorrow is going to be nice and cool. Today is nice and hot. We had a period of really excessive rain for a bit. And so knowing that the lawn care that we're doing, our organic approach, is always going to be affected by weather. So rainy conditions, if there are new weeds that weren't there before, usually it's because of something like maybe oversaturated conditions. They are more happy there right now. As we enter into hot, stressful weather, things like crabgrass, we're going to start to see. That's a warm season annual. It will outcompete our cool season grasses when it gets nice and hot. And so we'll start to see it in July. And so there is, so all of these things kind of play a role in our weed control approach. The other thing to remind about weather is that we do reschedule based on heat, wind, rain, can all be things that might affect our scheduling for these services. Excess water, I went over this last month, but there are weeds that love saturation. So really a sign of either soil that's not filtering water appropriately or just simply the weather that we're experiencing. Heat stress. So this is what we might be entering into right now. It feels like there's been a lot of ample moisture up until now, but even the change from lots of moisture to none, it really can stress the grass out. Grasses need an inch of water a week to survive. And when they experience heat stress, this isn't a dead lawn, it's just a lawn that's gone dormant. And it does that to protect itself. So heat weeds, crabgrass, knotweed, foxtail, purslane, these are all weeds that love heat. So they tend to exist in heat zones in the lawn. Those are areas that are along concrete where the soil will heat up more quickly and more often than other parts of the lawn. South-facing slopes are also areas that can be a heat zone. Any area that also is like tracked, so maybe along a driveway where car tires might hit, then it provides a space where the soil is compacted and heated, and there's certain weeds that love that, and our cool season grasses do not. And here is another video, quick about heat stress.
Just like people, our lawns suffer from heat during the summer. Keep in mind, grass will naturally protect itself from heat stress by going dormant. Don't panic. It's most likely not dead, even though it may look that way. Grass needs 1 inch of water per week applied at the same time for best results. When heat is in the forecast, it is best to water ahead of that weather. This will prepare your roots to chase moisture for a more drought resistant and healthier way to thrive in heat stress. Keep watering. Even if the water cannot break dormancy, it will keep the grass alive. Choose the right cultivars and varieties of grass. There are many options that can withstand heat and drought better than others. Do not mow in hot weather. Heat tracking can damage turf when mowers or heavy traffic run over the grass that is at its wilting point. If the lawn is long and needs attention, mow in the evenings. Otherwise, let it grow until it fully recovers. Never mow when the lawn is dormant and only cut off 1/3 of the grass blade at a time. During periods of heat and drought, keep grass at a 3-inch minimum, but preferably longer at 3 to 4.5 inches. This protects the crown of the grass plant from stress. Lawns are often damaged during long heat waves by being mowed too short and not getting enough water. Remember, irrigation, time, and improved weather can all help the grass recover. Heat stress is something that grass can survive with proper care. Naturally, we can help.
So in talking about different grass species and how they do with heat stress, this shows our 2 grass varieties that we do in our house mixes. So we do take time each winter to look at NTEP results and find grass species that are doing well in Minnesota that have allelopathic properties. And then we're looking for ones that do well in the conditions that we're experiencing. So we upped our varieties that do well in drought conditions based on the last 3 years of what we've been experiencing. So our sunshade mix is always going to include 80% of fine fescues of some variety, and our shade only mix is going to be 100% fine fescues. So the sunshade mix is going to include 20% of Kentucky bluegrass that does really well in the sun, but then some of those fine fescues that are doing well in sun and shade, and specifically tall fescue and hard fescue. Those 2 species do the best in tolerating heat stress. They're the most drought avoidant grasses and have done really well in tests recently with the stressful summers that we've been experiencing. Just a little plug here for if you're going to buy seed on your own, something to, I always say, turn the bag around and look at what you're getting. You do want to look for at least 85% purity, over 85% germination rate. You want less than 0.3% of weed seeds. less than 0.5% of other crops, less than 8% of inert matter. And then you do want that seed to be tested within the last 9 months. So just a little tip of when you're buying grass seed from the store, when in doubt, buying the most expensive seed is a good way to do it, because you do want to buy seed that's actually going to germinate. And then this picture at the bottom shows things like annual ryegrass. Anything that says annual is only going to come up for 1 year. So something that you might not want to establish because it will not overwinter for us. Also, when they say variety not stated, you really want to know what you're getting. Usually that's just a way for them to get rid of some stuff that they don't want anymore, may not have a good look to them, may not cut very well, may not overwinter very well. So things to just keep clear of when you're buying your own seed. You can always request seed from us that we can drop off once a year for you to do seeding in kind of nook and cranny areas within the lawn, or however you wish to use it. We touched on watering. I'll go over that again with basically deep and infrequent watering is a general rule for a healthy lawn. So instead of the kind of every other day light watering, that really encourages your grass roots to stay shallow. They're going to be more affected by drought. They're going to make the grass weaker, which makes them more susceptible to diseases, to insects, to weeds. If you can run the irrigation from the off position and just turn it on when you need it. You want to do 1 inch all at the same time of saturation to find out how long that will take for your sprinkler system or your hose. You can just put out something like a tuna can and see how long it takes you to get to that 1 inch of depth, and then you'll know how long to run the sprinkler. And this, I think, is our final video. This is just a quick one about watering.
Home lawns typically need 1 inch of water 1 time per week, and only if it hasn't rained. So in Minnesota, sprinkling in July and August is usually all that is necessary. Irrigation should always be done in the morning and should also saturate the whole lawn at the same time. Sandy soils and large slopes may require watering 2 times per week. Overwatering is a common mistake, especially during hot and humid periods, which can create an environment where disease can thrive. Disease symptoms from overwatering can often be mistaken for dry grass. Deep and infrequent watering is encouraged because it improves soil health and trains roots to chase the moisture down, making them stronger, resulting in a healthier and more drought-resistant lawn. To further reduce water consumption, we suggest establishing grass species that require even less attention. Pine fescues need a lot less water than Kentucky bluegrass. For more tips, please reach out. Naturally, we can help.
Okay, so grass, it actually needs a period of drying out to be healthy. So that's another thing about what was happening to us earlier with excessive rain. Our grass does not like to be oversaturated, especially fine fescues too. They don't like to be oversaturated. So overwatering is something that can be a problem for just not letting the crown of that grass plant dry out, which every year is a new challenge about watering. And so when we give these instructions, we also just have to think about what's going on in the environment right now. I also like to give a plug about grass in general, that grass in our lawns, similar to landscaping, it's going to help improve our water quality. It's going to improve our soil. It cools the air. It improves our air quality. So all of these things are helping us live a healthy lifestyle by having healthy grass around us. And then the other point is recycling grass clippings. That's another cultural method that provides free nitrogen to the soil, so it's free fertilizer, but it can also decrease the amount of carbon release we give into the atmosphere. So all of these things, keeping our grass nice and healthy, keeping it long, it helps just cool the air around us and provides a lot of benefits to ourselves and the critters around us in our home. Bee lawns have been a popular variety of grass that we can have as an offering. We used the Twin City seed mix, which, just to note, this year they've actually replaced their creeping thyme with yak yarrow. The creeping thyme was having some difficulties establishing. Once it did establish, it was also taking over some of the other flowering plants. And so they have changed that this year. You can see from this picture that Dutch white clover is part of this mix. Some of what you can do if you don't want to sow a bee lawn, part of what you can do is just allow things like clover to thrive in the lawn. So if you get some of it in the lawn, not trying to kill it would be one way to support our pollinators. There's a lot of pollinators that are supported by the Dutch white clover. And this is really what it should look like, which the flowering plants are within a fine fescue mix. So when we seed, we're always doing those fine fescues. So we're putting part of that process in, and then just allowing some flowering plants there to thrive is a good way to support our pollinators. So in kind of conclusion of what I've talked about today, we talked about weed control, really organic weed control, our approach to it. We only have so many tools and it is a process. So everything we do takes time to work. We always have a tolerance for 5 to 10% of weeds. That would be after 3 full years on our standard program. Organic products cost more. We have to put more down. So just know there's challenges with that. We're always looking for any new approaches out there that will help us with the weed control process. Part of our challenges in Minnesota also include weather. Heat and rain do affect our cool season grasses. They affect the weeds that are there. So thinking about those things when we're thinking about changes in our weeds is a helpful tool, and knowing that everything can change too. So our weather can change and those things can improve. Watering tips, always watering ahead of a drought. If we know we're going to be in an excessive drought coming up, giving the lawn a nice good soak ahead of time is a really good way to help that grass not go dormant. And if it does go dormant, that's okay. It's just protecting itself and it will break that eventually. Grass really only dies when it's been over 40 days without any moisture, or if you cut it too short, or if you run over heavy equipment with it when it's in a dormant state. Bee lawns help our pollinators by providing flowering plants within the lawn. And then I just wanted to give a plug about landscaping is also a way to do that. So Lunseth has a landscaping team, and we do projects where we could install a flowering perennials in part of the lawn. That could be a way to still have the lawn the way you wish, use it as you wish, but then provide spaces here for pollinators to enjoy, and they can benefit from that spring through fall. In this picture here, you can see there is a bee on one of the flowers. And these can also be installed in areas of the lawn that may not be successful for the lawn to be. So always, if you want to think about that, having a discussion with someone on our landscaping team to think about how we can stop growing grasses in areas that are becoming difficult and maybe doing something else. We can do that in containers. This doesn't have a ton of pollinator benefits, but you can have some pollinator plants in containers. Here's a couple other examples of some interesting things that people have done in their lawn. We do do things like patios, sidewalks, pavers, all of that type of work. Here's an example of a patio, and then putting some pollinator friendly plants around that. This I think was I don't know if it's a grapevine, but a project there where we did we can build some interesting things. So doing some hardscaping with your planting and utilizing some we can do landscape lighting, some fire pit, some boulders, being creative in some of these approaches to our lawns. And there's another patio. And that is the end of the presentation I have prepared for today, but happy to open up specific questions that you have about your lawn, or I can go back to any slides too with anything that I went too quickly on. Does anyone have any questions? I'll open this chat up a bit. Oh yeah, so recycled grass clippings, do you mean don't catch it and let them back into the lawn? Yes. So when I say, so not bagging our grass clippings, part of what we're recommending when we do our fertilizer and thinking about it as a full season approach, we're always assuming that you're recycling the grass clippings in there because that's giving some nitrogen back to the soil. Always a good strategy. And even in, I'll for sure say this in our fall one, but when we're mulching leaves, you can run leaves over multiple times with a lawnmower to mulch them into the lawn. And that's a really good way in the fall to provide some nutrition to the lawn that's free. And then you don't have to rake them and bag them. So let me know if I'm not answering any of these questions, I could come back to them as well. But that's what that was a question about recycled grass clippings. The next one is any mole recommendations. So we do have a person, his name is Rick Huberty. He owns a company called Metro Mole Control, and I can type this in here, but he is an expert in moles, voles, and gophers. He's actually written a book about it as well. And he does more of trapping. And one thing I should mention about that is that he, a lot of times people want to they want to get rid of moles to get rid of grubs, and it doesn't necessarily mean hand in hand. So if you have a mole problem, it doesn't mean you have a grub problem, or if you have a grub problem and you get rid of moles, it doesn't mean it takes care of the grub problem. Moles, but it is grubs are a food source for moles, and he is the person we would refer to, Rick Huberty at Metro Mole Control here in Minneapolis. Do bee lawns need mowing? That's a good question. That is, they do need mowing, but really only, I think they recommend every 3 to 4 weeks. I would always say you can be the judge of the aesthetic of how long you want to keep the lawn, but the fescues in there don't need to be mowed very often. They will have a nice they'll kind of flop over and have a nice aesthetic being cut high. You do want those flowering plants to flower. So you want to not cut as much so you can have that clover flower, you can have that self-heal flower. And so that's so that, cutting it every 3 to 4 weeks will allow that flowering time, but then also have it not get too wild, because you can just overseed with a bee lawn. So you might still have some native grasses in there that will stick out, and they'll need to be mowed. So keeping it cut high, cutting every 3 to 4 weeks would be appropriate for a bee lawn, and doing that just naturally throughout the year. So if you have clover that's in your lawn, you have a fescue lawn, you don't have to cut every week, you can cut every few weeks, and it's just fine for the grass. The only thing to keep in mind also is you never want to cut off more than a third of the grass blade. So if you do cut, it will really stress out the grass and the flowers if you cut it too short after it has this nice long length. So you do just want to be careful about that and make sure you're not cutting it too short. Are bee lawns compatible with your method? So corn, gluten, meal, iron. That's a very good question. So it is compatible with our corn gluten. We can still overseed with fescues or the bee lawn every year as we normally would. We will never, either we'll do 0 or we'll do 1 iron maximum, because the iron can kill self-heal. It can kill clover. It takes, they will most always recover through one of those iron applications. So if there's other weeds of concern, then we can certainly still include that 1 iron, just knowing that some of it may be suppressed. Most likely it will recover through it. But we would never do more than 1, because we do not want to kill off those things that you've paid to put in the lawn. That's why it can be kind of challenging for things like Creeping Charlie, is because once you establish a bee lawn, we cannot control Creeping Charlie at all. And it has to be you have to kind of make choices about what you want to manage if something comes in that you don't want. There's some ways you can do it with hand pulling or raking, or you can buy iron-based products retail that you can try to spot spray as you wish, or but for us to do it, when we're blanket spraying, we won't do irons. But we can still service a bee lawn just like normal. Compost tea is a great thing to have that will help support that flowering lawn. And then the corn gluten and the fertilizer all work as well. You should need less fertilizer, so you can really tone back on the both corn gluten has nitrogen and our organic fertilizer does. So we can dial that back because the clover, once it's established, should be helping provide some of that nutrition to the soil. So we've had a bee lawn for several years, and the creeping thyme has taken over. With the change to yak yarrow, what is the recommendation, and how does one get rid of the creeping thyme? That's a good question. I think because the creeping thyme, I don't think the iron is going to suppress it. I'll have to look, I'll follow up with that on in terms of, it's not rated for creeping thyme. It may stress it out enough, but I think that the creeping thyme is going to be a hand pull situation. And then, or I suppose there could be a chemical. Doing a chemical in the fall is the most environmentally friendly way to do it. So you can do it once and try to manage, what you don't want there and what you do want. That can be a strategy. Otherwise, I think it's hand pulling it. And then the yak yarrow too, I'm the other thing I would have to think about is how can we have some competition in there. So if you pulled some out and then established the new bee lawn with the yak yarrow, can that help keep that creeping thyme at bay? But that's a question that I would ask for. I'll ask it for James Wolfen, who's the one at Twin City Seed that he helped as an undergraduate, or maybe he was a graduate student at the U of M. He helped in creation of the bee lawn, and he's the one that's helped make that change to the yak yarrow. So good question, and I will follow up with that. I'll put, when I post this video on YouTube, I can put some comments in there, and I will follow up on that particular question. So if you have Creeping Charlie in your yard, is it safe to let clippings go back into the lawn, or does that spread the Charlie? That is a very good question as well. Creeping Charlie certainly can spread that way. So I always say, you really should just general sense recycle those grass clippings. Because even if you bag it up, it doesn't mean that you're absolutely solving the problem, but you are helping for it to not get reestablished in the lawn. Sometimes things like if you want to heavy metal rake it up a bit so it's not, so you take out some of those rhizomes and then mow it and recycle the clippings in there. You're taking out some of it before you do the mowing. But if you have I suppose if one particular area has Creeping Charlie, maybe save that for last and bag those up, recycle it into the rest of the yard. if you have an excessive issue and you really want to tackle it, certainly do bag up those clippings. But the significance of how it transfers isn't huge enough that when people have it, in parts of their lawn, I still say to recycle the grass clippings, if that makes sense. You can, I think that was, so that's Eric. You can, if you want to unmute yourself, and if I didn't answer that for you, I know it's kind of saying both ways, but it's a tricky thing.
Yeah, you did answer it. Thank you.
Yeah, good, thanks. Any thoughts on Captain Jack's lawn weed brew and getting rid of Creeping Charlie? I don't know about Captain Jack's lawn weed brew, so that's something I'll have to look up. I've never heard of it. But what I would wonder, what's in it, if it says, I would guess if it's something that's retail that's claiming that it works on Creeping Charlie and it's natural, I'm gonna guess it's gonna have chelated iron in it, which is what the product we use. Anything outside of chelated iron that's natural, I don't know that is effective on Creeping Charlie. I will say that if the things chemical wise that you need to have to eradicate it is something that includes triclopyr, includes 2,4-D, and then includes a third mode of action. So some sort of three-way chemical. Applying that in the fall when the weed is going dormant is the most environmentally friendly time of year to do the chemical and try to do it once and done, replace it with grass, and then move on. But textbook answer also for Creeping Charlie is to be persistent and to work as a neighborhood. So working as a neighborhood is kind of difficult, because a lot of times if you get it out of your lawn, it may find its way back in because of natural areas around us, parks, neighbors. And so always a constant battle. One thing you can also do, I had mentioned heavy metal raking. If you have a wild area or a neighbor that it's coming from, if you heavy metal rake it back toward that area, so like a sand rake, it doesn't like where it's getting stressed out. So it'll put its energy into where it's not getting stressed out. And so if you keep stressing it on your lawn, then it will put its energy usually into a different direction. So that can be a strategy too, without having to resort to chemicals or things like that. But I'll look up Captain Jack's lawn weed brew, and I will also put that on the YouTube, or we have newsletters and Facebook page. So I'll try to answer some of these questions and put it out on our social media, to see. I'll investigate that one and see if I can figure out what's in it. Then we have had iron applications the last 2 years. We need to plant some grass seed. Should I halt the iron applications next year so the grass seed can get established? That's a good question. So the grass seed, you can apply iron and you can seed the very next day. So we can always time our applications out so that we can do an iron application, then you can seed right after. If you seed, we only need 3 weeks after to then apply the iron. So in some situations, let's say if somebody had a completely bare lawn and they're seeding in the spring, and really when you seed in the spring, you have to think about seeding as an effort for the entire season, because it has a lot of competition with weeds. There's always some challenges with doing it in the spring, so it's not going to come in super thick and lush and exactly how you want it then. So you might be seeding all summer long and then into the fall. If it's something like that and you don't want to mess with the timing, we certainly can take the iron applications out, and then just concentrate on seeding the whole year. If there's things that are popping up like weeds with your seeding efforts, there's always, the iron doesn't work on everything. So sometimes things that are competing with it, the iron wouldn't be rated against anyhow. And so you might as well not have any iron. But things like Creeping Charlie, dandelions, the weeds we mentioned earlier, chickweed, black medic, plantains, we can work the schedule with the iron and your seeding efforts. There should be a way to do that in the season for both things to get accomplished. But that would just be talking to us about the schedule. Justin's our scheduler, and we can always, he's the person that can kind of manipulate it to make it best for you. And so always just talking to the office about what to do. Or especially if you just seeded, say, okay, I just seeded now, the rest of my program, what can we do to continue on with it? And we'll always kind of make those recommendations. But really, it's the 3 weeks before and after seeding is with corn gluten, 3 weeks after with iron. But you can, if you apply the iron, you can seed 24 hours after that iron application. It's taken into the plant very quickly and it doesn't affect new seed. It's just when the new seed is trying to germinate, we don't want to spray that with iron because it could have ill effects to that. And just keeping off when you do seed, just keeping away from it and letting it do what it needs to do is always the best strategy for success. So keeping equipment off of it is another thing to think about. So my lawn has a lot of creeping Charlie and clover and other weeds. What is it a lost cause? Not necessarily. So whenever if somebody says that, I always look at the program, like what do we have set up? What more can we do? So having 4 irons is the maximum, and that's for creeping Charlie clover. That's what you need to be the most successful with that. The other part of it is seeding, and so making sure that when we seed in the fall, that's being watered in for it to be successful, because grass will really help outcompete some of those weeds. And so getting grass established is part of the process. So it could be something with, this is from Kim. So like looking at the program and seeing, do we have the maximum iron applications? And then can we do something like triple aerate and seed in the fall to really get some more grass established? The aeration and overseeding that we do is just one pass. It's meant to thicken and diversify what's there. But if we really want to get some more grass established, then we would do like a triple pass. Also hand seeding in these little tight areas that maybe the creeping Charlie is stemming from, and getting something to replace it is really overall part of that process, being persistent. There's very few times, just this is my personal belief, that there's very few times that I think somebody needs to start over. If you do start over, there are times of year that are much easier to do it. Fall is the time. So if you want to do that, it can be done either like a lawn renovation. So something that our organic team can do, which is like a triple aerate, triple seed, dry compost on top, add the C20 in, trying to get after having some irons in the season. And so getting that lawn to just kind of be like a rejuvenation, and just getting a lot of organic matter in there and getting some seed to sow. Or you can do it like a landscaping, so they can just take everything out, put down sod, maybe put gardens in areas, especially when you think about if there's been a problem area from year after year. What is going on there? Is there water that sits there for too long and so grass won't grow? Is it too shaded for grass to grow? Is it have high competition with trees or tree roots? How do you use the space? Is this something better you could do there? Then more of like a landscaping, come in, take it out, start fresh. Even when people start fresh and put in sod, it needs to be cared for. A lot of times their sod will fail after 2-3 years. And that is because sod depends on the kind of sod you put in. If it's Kentucky bluegrass, it needs a lot of sun, a lot of water, a lot of nitrogen, and it needs to be aerated for at least 6 years to successfully root and establish well. They do have fine fescue sod, which does well in shade. Fine fescue sod can be hard to come by. So something that sometimes you have to get on a list, or, get in early so we can make sure we can secure the sod to be able to set that application up for success. but I don't, like the U of M will say if it's more than 50% weeds, 50, sometimes they say 70% weeds, start over. I think there's always room for improvement, slow, but that's their organic approach. I've seen plenty of lawns go from very bad to very good with time. Um, so, and always communicate with the office about your concerns. You can take pictures. We could stop by and take a look to assess what's there. But usually we'll say time, which is sometimes hard to hear. But that's really our approach. Is much better worked with time. Um, is it effective for us to spot treat dandelions and creeping Charlie with liquid iron in between your treatments? I see Bonide has a ready to spray product called Captain Jack's Lawn Weed Brew. So that it can be effective now. You just want to always read the label on any product that you're using. So sometimes they'll have a maximum amount of applications in a year. They'll have maybe instructions about, separating it out from other products. We always spray the irons need to be at least 2 to 4 weeks separated from when we blanket spray it, and that's for the grass to recover. The grass will kind of darken. It's a monocot. It will take in the iron as a micronutrient. It has receptors to turn off when it's had enough. Some broadleaf weeds will overdose on it. That's why they're going to turn purple, black, and start to die. But if you put those iron applications too close together, the grass will start to stress. And in no way do we want the grass to suffer from it. So, reaching out to us, or especially when you say spot spray, if you're just spot spraying the weeds and not really, touching a lot of the grass, I don't think there's any harm to do those applications in between ours. If you ever notice that the grass is suffering, then I would just hold back on that. And again, always read your label, make sure. I don't always know what these products are, so just make sure that you understand what it is in terms of how they want you to use it. Most likely you'll be able to use that with our applications too. And then does the liquid iron stain concrete? It can, yes. It will. So that's why we stay clear of fences, sidewalks, stonework, things like that. It has sort of a reddy orangey color, and it certainly can stain things. And so that's why, yeah, we would keep clear of that. And and another reason for waiting for it to dry, you just don't want to walk it off onto your stuff. And then I have a question. I have a ton of crabgrass this year. Is that controlled by your methods? So crabgrass, it just emerged recently. So it is it would, like 3 weeks ago, you probably wouldn't have seen it, but I've seen it being emerged with this hot weather. So you always think of in July is crabgrass time. Some people mistake quackgrass and some other grassy weeds with crabgrass if you saw it in the spring. So if it was there in April or May, that's quackgrass. Quackgrass is one that's a perennial. Our corn will not be a pre-emergent for it, and the iron doesn't work on anything grassy. So we would not be able to work on that. Crabgrass, we can. Now that is prevented with corn gluten meal. For 3 years. So the first year, corn gluten meal is going to prevent 25% of new weeds. That would include crabgrass. Second year, 50%. Third year, 75 plus. The areas, when we say the 5-10%, crabgrass is going to thrive in those heat zones. So along driveways, south facing slopes, any concrete area, those can heat up even when there's snow on the ground. And the crabgrass seeds, they'll start to germinate when the soil reaches 55 degrees. So that's why we have the corn gluten. Once the soil turns 55 degrees, we're going to move to our post-emergent time because that time period of preventing it is over. Crabgrass is really interesting too, because when it dies, it'll kind of flatten out. And what it's doing is it's preparing space to sow. It's like a prolific seed spreader. So it puts a lot of seeds out. And then when it can't overwinter. So when it dies and we don't replace it with more grass, then it has this nice blank soil space. So then in the spring, that sunlight can hit the soil and all those seeds can germinate. And that's how it's living year after year, because it's does a very good job biologically and protecting itself and letting it thrive. So we can help with it. Some homes are more challenging than others, like a south facing slope. We have to get out there early. If you have really big concerns with crabgrass, letting us know, because we'll put you on the earlier route for the springtime, or we can do a heavier application to just we can be strategic about it. And you could even pay for 2 applications and have it kind of a heavier dose, and then we would not do fertilizer later in the season. That could be a way to try to prevent it. Over time, thick, healthy grass, having corn gluten for those 3 full years, you can get it under good control that way. I've had mushrooms in my yard this year. Are others seeing this? What's the likely reason? I have seen a lot of mushrooms this year, and that was with the amount of moisture that we have. There's a lot of, mushrooms are a sign of good fungal matter in the soil. So we want lots of live things in our soil and our lawns. It's all healthy. All of that micro diversity, all those microorganisms, those all play a part in a healthy ecosystem. So we want all that. So when you have mushrooms, you can think, well, I do have some healthy things going on. When people have an influx of it, sometimes it could be from a tree removed. And so those decaying matter over time once it reaches the surface, will start to form into mushrooms. But mostly what I've been seeing this year is just saturation. When there's moisture on top of the soil, it creates this nice environment for this fungi to grow. They don't usually persist, especially as it gets warm and dry. So then just kicking those mushrooms over, you shouldn't see them over time. If you see them in ring form, so if you have like in your lawn, you see a halo of mushrooms in a kind of an arc, that can be a sign of fairy ring, which is a lawn disease. Nothing that we can prevent or solve. Most extension services are not going to recommend fungicides or anything. They just want you to mask the symptoms, because even if you dig out all the soil and put in new soil, it doesn't necessarily solve the issue. And fairy ring is a disease where the fungal matter will be kind of it'll prevent water from reaching parts of the lawn and then pushing all of those nutrients out into a kind of a halo. And so it'll be like darker grass with mushrooms on it. And that's a really clear sign of that disease. Usually resistant grasses, aerating it, compost tea, those all things can help mask it. And then certain times of year, you're not going to see it when everything's growing at the same rate. So that could be a thing. So you can always reach out to the office too if you have mushrooms in a ring kind of form, or something very unusual, because we could see what's going on there. Compost tea is something we use for lawns that have had disease symptoms. They're adding micronutrients and adding microorganisms that are alive, and all of those live things are doing lots of things, and they fight other pathogens, and they help the grass, and there's millions of them, and they're doing millions of different things. But it's a good way to, if you had disease symptoms, to help protect the lawn moving forward as just part of your standard program. We have treated chickweed with iron 3 times last year, but it seems like it's back and creeping more into the yard. Is there a tipping point where it is beyond controlling it? For chickweed, I don't think so. I think, the like I've said in the presentation about our environment, is that I never think anything's a lost cause, but I also think that each year brings new challenges. We've had some some challenges with our moisture level, and with our drought. And so all of these things, I always like to think about the whole picture of what it's doing. One thing we could suggest, and so I see this is Dave, is doing more corn gluten meal in this time of year. So we're doing corn gluten rounds now. I could up the amount of that because that's a pre-emergent, and that chickweed is likely setting seed here because it's a winter annual. It's going to be setting seed at the later summer. I will say also, though, there's two types of chickweed. There's common chickweed, which is what we mostly see, but there's also one called mouse-eared chickweed. The mouse-eared chickweed is a little darker. It's hairier. It's got little hairs on it. The iron is not rated for that one. And that one is I'd have to double check. I wanted to say it was a summer annual instead of a winter annual. But if it's a perennial, then the corn gluten doesn't work on it. I don't think it's a perennial, but I will check on that. So Dave, if you even want to send me an email, so Shay, SHAY, at Team Lunseth. So that's team, TEAMLUNSETH.com. Then I can look at your program and then add in more of the corn gluten meal, to see if that helps for the common chickweed in slowing the seed spreading and the germination of those seeds. Also could be, when we're looking at where it persists, I usually see it in like kind of wooded areas, the grass isn't growing well. So thick, healthy grass again, or maybe there's a landscaping solution that might be better in the long run. Yeah, those would be some strategies. Like all weeds, I always try to get like a full picture of what we've done in your programming, what the lawn looks like, the sunshade levels, maybe some history of what's been happening there, and then our environment and thinking about why things are there and how we can get rid of it that way. Our tools, we just don't have the tools for every situation. I hope that answered it, but if it didn't, you can email me or you can turn off your mic and be happy to chat further about that. And then what is heavy metal raking? So that is like a sand rake, something that's not just like a leaf rake that it moves, one that's stable and hard. So you're pulling the creeping Charlie, you're getting all those the tines to pull those rhizomes because they're all connected. And so if you can do that where you can get connected long strands of that creeping Charlie, that's the best way to rake it up. And that's what I mean by heavy metal raking. It's more of a solid, like what you might consider a sand rake. Yes, and so the person that was talking about crabgrass, it could be quackgrass, and yeah, that's a common mistake. Quackgrass, any grassy weed that you see in the springtime before July is not crabgrass, and crabgrass really is emerging now. It's more limey green, and it will start to have when it starts to flower, it has these. It's called digitalia, so it looks like kind of little finger spikes, and they're kind of feathery things. That's crabgrass. And the nice thing with crabgrass is it's summer annual. Anything that's an annual, we always have the ability to prevent. It's some things that are perennials that persist year after year that the iron isn't rated for. Those are the more challenging weeds for us, and those would include things like quackgrass. So then someone said, I just want to say that our lawn underwent a large number of insults over more than 5 years. We started using your service and the lawn is gradually improving and looks much better than it has in ages. Thank you. That's very nice to hear. We actually love if you ever put up reviews on us. We love honest reviews on social media or on the internet, Google reviews, to get people to understand that it is a process. It's hard to say because it is more money. You have to have more tolerance for weeds. It's going to take a longer time. But we're all doing this, I assume, because we believe, or someone in our house believes, that there is there is a way for us to eliminate chemicals, and there is a way to help protect our waterways and our insects and our critters and our pets and our family members by avoiding some of these chemicals. You can maintain a lawn without them. You don't need these things to have a healthy lawn, but we can't work the program overnight, and so it does take some of this patience and long term and slow process, where I've seen a lot of lawns that just it's slow, and always communicating your concerns with the office can help us, where we can speed up the process by adding more things in, or seeing a problem area and just saying, this might be, this area is just, it's got too much competition with other things that maybe you want to consider landscaping. So thinking about our lawn is purposeful. How are we using it? What do we want it to look like? What is what is our intention with it? And if grass doesn't want to grow in an area, what else can we do? Like bee lawns have been one that's been very popular with people, but it's also one that poses challenges when you have other weeds come in that you want to control. Or I've seen some this year that some of those flowering plants aren't establishing, and there could be some reasons behind that. But how we're using our lawn, how we're taking care of it will greatly aid in the success or the non-success of some of the things that we're trying to do. But I appreciate the comment. I truly do. Does anyone else, I think I read through them all. Does anyone else have, want me to touch back on anything or have any other questions? You can say them out loud or you can type it in. Nothing further? I think with that, we're at about an hour, so I think I'll stop it here. Reach out if you have any questions at any time. I'm happy to answer anything, and I really appreciate you participating in the webinar. We'll put out our dates we'll do 2 more this year, so we'll do one sometime in August and one sometime in September. Always trying to switch up the topics to what's timely to what's happening in our lawns at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.